The city of Jacksonville is planning to spend $775 million to help turn Everbank Stadium into the stadium of the future. The total cost of the project is $1.4 billion, with the city paying 55% and the Jaguars paying 45%. Jaguars will also cover any extra costs if the project goeth over. You ever have a construction project over budget?
Yeah, I know how that feels.
Remember that? The construction is going to take about 4 years, and the new stadium should be ready by 2028. One really exciting part of the deal is a $300 million fund to help the community, and this money will be split between the city and the Jaguars. Will support community development, affordable housing, and homelessness programs, especially in the East neighborhood there in downtown. And it will also fund park projects like Riverfront Plaza and Shipyards West Park. The new stadium design will include a shade cover to protect fans from the sun and rain, a mirrored facade, wider walkways with views of the river and downtown. Sounds really nice. And many new features like 190 more places to buy food and drinks, and 12 new little boy and little girls rooms.
There we go.
The rest, 12 new restrooms and 60 new escalators, GC. What do you think about those escalators?
It'd be so much fun
going all the way to the top, baby. All the way to the top, just like the Jaguars. These upgrades are expected to bring in $26 billion into the local economy over the next 30 years. The deal also includes a promise that the Jaguars will stay in Jacksonville for the next 30 years. The team will also take over daily stadium operations and most game day expenses, while the city will handle police and fire protection. To pay for this project, the city plans to extend the Better Jacksonville Plan sales tax until 2030, which should save taxpayers $1.5 billion in debt payments. Even though some people have criticized the plan, Mayor Donna Deegan believes it is a smart and legal way to fund the stadium, which we will give our take on as well. City Council will review and vote this deal by June 25th, and there will be several community meetings to get public input. In short, this deal, huge investment in Jacksonville's future, biggest private and public spend in Jacksonville's history, keeping the Jaguars in town and helping the community. GC, what's your take on this, bud?
I love it. We have been following the stadium deal for, well over a year now.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to have Mark Lamping, who's the president of the Jaguars, here in studio talking about the Jags and potentially talking about the stadium renovation deal at that time, although he couldn't share a lot as it was early on in the proceedings. But, we've been talking a lot about it on the show because I think in terms of things that is going to improve quality of life here in Jacksonville, things that are going to increase median incomes here in Jacksonville, make us talent destination, make us a tourist destination here in Jacksonville. Because when that happens, of course, the community benefits. But if I put my real estate investor hat on, what happens then is the same thing that you see happening in Tampa, the same thing you see happening in Nashville, the same thing you see happening in other revitalized downtowns. A rising tide lifts all boats. And rents continue to rise and home prices continue to rise. And incomes rise, and the rents and the home prices can support it. So we truly can all win as a community, and then we can win as investors. So there's a lot to break down in this deal. We can look at it from all sides, right? I'm a taxpayer here. I've been excited about putting this deal together for a long time. We have been excited about it here at JWB, and the numbers that have shaken out are better than what we expected.
That's awesome. Yeah, cool. Listen, man, as the storyteller, emotional guy here on the show, I can tell you that having moved to Jacksonville, it feels like Jaguars are culture here, right? I think in general, Americans, sports and culture kind of overlap, right? So like our arts is our sports. It's the thing that we gather around, the thing that brings us together. In Jacksonville in particular, I do believe the Jaguars are a huge, huge part of the narrative. 100%. So much so that me as a miserable Dolphins fan have felt that I need to become a Jags fan to fully embrace the city. I can't just be half stepping out here, right? So the idea that a secondary tertiary market like Jacksonville gets to lock in their NFL team, the biggest, most valuable sports in America, right? That is a event-based sport that brings people together, that does all this thing. I think it's really good. The idea that it is in downtown, I think is another really, really big one. Being able to like activate a downtown, being able to have a stadium with like waterfront views, like that is something that like you see on TV. It looks great. It attracts people to the city. It raises the level of perception for the city 100%. And its residents as well. And then last but not least, this idea that it's encased in this like sports and entertainment district that is going to happen. I've seen that work in Arlington in the middle of nowhere.
100%.
I've seen it work in other cities where like you're activating this area, to me means economic driver. And then last but not least, billionaire owner with a famous name that does other things inside the city, to me is really, really cool. But I want to hear from you from the deal wise. You're a deal maker, GC. You're a
Yes.
guy that knows how to negotiate. What do you think of this deal in general, as far as like, how did the city do?
Well, so I mean, the numbers are staggering. And, nobody can really comprehend when you're talking about billions of dollars, right? I did the research on SoFi Stadium, and I was even shocked. SoFi Stadium out in California cost $5.5 billion to put together. So, I mean, the sheer numbers that we're talking about here are hard to conceptualize. But what we can do is we can look for market comparables. And that's where I really think we can understand, is this a good deal for the city? Is this a good deal for the Jaguars? Because as a city, Jacksonville is on the lower end of the market scale, right? We don't have the resources that LA or New York has to pull revenue from this investment.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what this means is that we have to work harder to keep a team here.
Yeah.
And nothing is more evident about that when a lease starts to come up or a stadium needs renovations. And NFL owners know they have the most desirable product probably in the land, and they can go and shop their wares and get a whole lot more money at other suitors because there's only 32 NFL franchises with no plans to expand at the moment. So the ownership truly is in a position of strength there. But when you have a special owner like we do here with Shad Khan and with Mark Lamping's leadership, he's the president, and the Jaguars here, what you're starting to see is that there are other market comparables out there, other stadium deals that have been reached just in the last couple of years that were more expensive to taxpayers than what we're seeing here in Jacksonville. And you start to ask yourself the question, why? Why would an NFL owner pay more of his own money to keep his team here for a smaller market? And this is where I just think the plan that has come to fruition, and Shad's plan since buying the Jacksonville Jaguars, is so brilliant. I didn't really understand it. I don't think anybody in Jacksonville really understood it. But he doesn't look at this as an NFL franchise that singularly needs to make a return on investment from that franchise. If you understand why the Jags play in London every single year, he was able to negotiate that agreement. He also owns a soccer team in London. And he's about placemaking. He's about city building. And it starts with downtown. So if you start to think about it from that perspective, where he sees a much bigger return, it is the best return on his investment because of the scale and the canvas that we have here in Jacksonville. And that's what I try to relate to a lot of our investors as well, right? We have a unique opportunity in Jacksonville where we each can have a part of Jacksonville through a rental property or our real estate investments. But because we are here, this blank canvas, we have this beautiful weather, we have people moving to Jacksonville all the time. This can be a much bigger return on investment when we attach ourselves to a growing city that has things that other cities don't have to share. And so I'm excited that Shad thinks that way. Through his actions, he thinks that way. And by doing that and expanding the scope of what this investment is for them and what the returns can be for them, this is what Mark shared with us here. Do you remember? He said, listen, we're going to have the opportunity to require less city dollars when it comes to taxpayer incentives, simply because we are interested in developing downtown. We are interested in developing neighborhoods surrounding the city.